Thank you so much. Ooh, my mic is working. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here, especially at this time of year. You know, I think Gary says, we really like to have you come at winter solstice because you're one of the only people that goes, ooh, snow! Grew up in Minnesota, and my mother's people were all Norwegian, all the way back. Both her father and her mother her father came from Norway, and her mother was born here, but grew up speaking Norwegian in the schools. And well, when she got to the schools, then that was harsh for them. They were punished severely for speaking their native languages. America's got a long history of attempting to be an assimilation culture. And it doesn't really matter what kind of immigrant you are. They want you to... And one of the wonderful things about Lake Harriet, too, is that there's always sort of a thematic thing. It makes it super easy for someone to come in and go, okay, the theme is about, December is about our unique voice. What does that mean, to have a unique voice? Well, of course, in an assimilation culture, especially in a Nordic culture, well, you would think that that was verboten altogether. You know, does anyone ever listen to Garrison Keillor and the Prairie Home Companion sometimes? And he's always talking about this janteloven. Janteloven is a series of rules about what it means to be Norwegian, and it's you're not better than anyone else, you're not unique, you're not supposed to take pride in anything that you've accomplished, you cannot toot your own horn on any level, and it's very much about trying to fit in. Well, Janteloven was written by a Norwegian man living in Denmark, and about how the Norwegians, as an underdeveloped colony, Norway was an underdeveloped colony of Denmark for 400 years. The Black Plague came in and took out 3/4 of the population, and the Danes moved in and took over. Towns were emptied out, you know, due to death and disease, and so they came in, took over, and didn't allow Norway to have schools and their own places of worship. Everything had to be taken over by the Danes. In Norway, they still call it the 400-year night. So it's very one of those things. And before that, before mid-1300s, was the first Christianization. There was about 300 years of Christianization. Norway Scandinavia in general had resisted Christianization, had resisted Romanization. So it kind of keeps going back and back and back, and there's always some sort of culture coming in to form the next culture around what their expectations ought to be. And so how far back into our root we can get is sometimes that's where we find our most unique voice. And in America, it's really hard because so many people don't know what their roots are, don't know what their family, where they came from, or why they came here. And those are, in Norse tradition, those are really important things because that's called our urlag. Has anyone seen Beowulf or read Beowulf? You know, like, yeah. He comes in and they give him a horn and he says, here's my lineage. Here's my urlag. I am Beowulf, and here's where I've come from, and here's who my parents were, and here's all the things that I've done. I swam across the English Channel, and I fought these many demon monsters and trolls and all these things. And he's holding this horn, and he's speaking over the horn, and he's telling the truth about who he is and what he's done. And that's what we used to do in our pre-Christian traditions. The horn was the sacred vessel, and the horn was carried to each person in the community by the woman who brewed the beer, the mead, the ale, whatever went into that horn. And it was carried to each person, and that person then had to take that horn and speak the truth over that horn, because that horn connects. There is a cave sculpture, a bas relief, I think you'd call it these days, of the Venus of La Soul. Does anyone know that one? And she's this great big figure, and her face is worn off, and she's got the horn in one hand, and there are 13 hatch marks on the horn, and her other hand is touching her womb space here, and it's as though this was 20,000 years ago that this was carved, for us to remember what it is that's most important. We speak our truth in the horn, and there are 13 moons in a month, and those words connect to the womb, connect to the wells of the tree, connect to our urlog, everything that we are, our parents and grandparents and their parents and their parents and their parents, all the way back to the original humans, comes from this deep well. And so by cutting out the horn ceremony, we have taken away our ability to to put our layer in that well. At winter solstice time, that's when everyone in the community would be together. In the summertime, women would take their cattle up to the high mountain farms. Men would go on fishing weeks and weeks at a time. They would go on trading adventures. Different things were happening, and it was a scattered community for a lot of the time. But in the winter time, in the dark time, the time when there's very little sunlight, in fact, in the fjord that my mother's all come from, it's the Sognefjord, and they don't have a horizon line because it's all mountain, it's all fjord, and the sun doesn't even blip up over the top of the fjord during this time of year. It is dark, 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 dark. And so that would be the time that we would come together. And each person would get the horn, and each person would be able to stand in front of the community with the horn and say, okay, here's who I am, and here's what I've done. I've started some new projects. I made some good artwork. I made my bed all on my own, right? Lots of really important things. I got a new job. I hurt my knee, but I'm working out, all of these things. And that way we speak it out, and that way our community can make use of it. If we just hide those things and stuff those things and take what Garrison Keillor says as the true and natural way a Nordic person should be, we go crazy inside, and the community can't make use of what we've done and what we've accomplished. So this janteloven, this false modesty, is dangerous to the Nordic spirit. Now, once you've spoken it over the horn and everyone has seen and heard, then you're done. Then you don't go off yapping about it, because that will drive everyone nuts, and you'll find yourself on top of some sort of fjord all by yourself. So that's something I want to talk about, in your lives as you gather with friends and family. take time to pass a common cup or a horn and let everybody have a chance to say what they're most proud of, what they've accomplished, and what they're really grateful for, because with an accomplishment comes a support system. We don't accomplish things all on our own. There's always some helper, some place where we sink our gratitude in. So that's something I'd like to just challenge you to bring a horn to your next ceremony and see what happens. In Norse tradition, so what is this unique voice? What is this piece? Well, I'm going to tell the story about how humans were created. In the beginning, as the Völva, the staff-carrying woman from the Voluspo, Odin has come to her for some help, because she is the wise woman who remembers everything. And that's where the magic is in Norse tradition. You know, one of the most important things, too, is that you have to realize that Old Norse didn't have a future tense. And Old German didn't have a future tense. And modern Finnish still doesn't have a future tense. So that might account for some of the gloomy aspect of people. We don't have a future. So what we have is the past. And the past is ruled by a female agency called Urd. And Urd, her name means is. The past isn't a dead thing that's done. The past is alive, and it rises up to greet us. And we are constantly creating past. We're not creating our future. We're creating a good past for ourselves. And then her name is, and then there's a Verdandi, and Verdandi's name translates to becoming. So there's is, there's becoming, and then there's Skuld. Skuld, her name translates to should, or skyld, debt, what we owe. What we owe to the past. So as we're speaking our good words over the horn, we pay our skyld, we pay skuld by honoring those people and those agencies that have supported our good state of being as we speak over the horn. So doesn't that just describe a lot of the Norse personality? You know, well, we're past, we're looking back past, and we're bubbling up in the is and the becoming, and there's no future. It's just this, what we owe, what we owe. I like to think about it in terms of like when you're gardening, right? When you're gardening, you have to think about the past of what has been in that ground before. And if that ground has been grown the same crop over and over and over again, you can't continue. There's nothing that can become there until you amend the soil. Pay your skyld into the soil. Put back the nutrients that you took out earlier. And that's the process of our own lives as well. So the Völva saying, in the beginning there was just this ganunga gap, this gaping void, the void of creation. Ice and fire, Isa and Nauthis, came together in the gaping void. And they interact. And that sound that they made is called Ymir. Ymir is the howling sound of creation. And it's this pictured as this hermaphroditic creative giant just oozing life from under their armpits, between their legs, like rubbing its legs, and it's just creating and creating and creating and creating, and it's filling up Ganunga gap, the gaping void. Then out of this lineage, these three deities were formed: Wold, Willi, and Way. Sometimes we know them as Odin, Vili, and Ve, these three sort of brothers. Wold's name translates to spirit. Willi translates to will. And Ve translates to holiness. The Ve, the place where we go to do our deepest, most spiritual process. Wold, Willi, Ve. So spirit, will, and holiness went across the void, and they said, oh, Ymnir is filling up the void with chaotic sound, and soon there will be no gap, and we need to do something about this. And so they took Ymir and they sliced him up and made 9 worlds out of his brains and his body, and her self created the world out of it, ordered it, and organized it. Spirit, will, and holiness organized sound into the music of the spheres that we know today. And they were walking along the shore, and there were these 2 trees, an ash tree and an elm tree, Ask and Embla. And they thought these shapes of these trees were just beautiful. And they said, let's create some beings from these trees. And so they lifted Embla up, and Wod breathed in to Embla and gave Embla spirit. And then Vili gave Embla will, the ability to use breath at will. I can hold my breath. I can make little sounds out of it if I want to. I can breathe in and make sound too. All these things I can do because I will it. And Ve said, now let's put this environment around this human and say, this is how you are holy. This is what makes you holy. Doing this breath and sound and spirit on your will and aligning your will with the will of the holiest of holies, that's how you can become like us, our deified children. So, and then Embla, they said, now you can be the male. We'll have a female and a male, ash and elm. And I think sometimes our environment tells us when things are off. You know, we have ash trees and elm trees that are dying all over the place in Minnesota and being taken out. And I think that there's some deep lessons in there about reconnecting with those pieces from the northern perspective. There are some messages that the nature tells us. And so, so here we are, these vessels. When you go, has anybody spoken to a Norwegian or Swede or somebody like that who has that heavy brogue? And has anyone had that experience? You have. Do you ever notice when they're talking and then talking along and then they go, yeah, 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 yeah. First time I heard that, I thought, oh my God, he's having an asthma attack. No, they breathe in on a tone. They do that. You know, everyone breathes out. It's the last thing we're going to do. But only if you're alive do you breathe in. And sound on breath on the inhale is a powerful reminder of our being alive and being in the process of our own creating, of our own creation of the past, of our urlog. So everybody, sound on the inhale. Well, first just empty out your breath. And then make a sound in the audio. Inhale, note. Oh, isn't that nice? Oh, everybody, look how alive you sound. That's good. So there you are. So that's another nice little ritual you can remind yourselves when you're holding the horn. It's not just what I'm saying into it, it's what I'm breathing back up. So, all right. So so then the Norns, these Norns, Ordverdandi Skuld, they are called the women of compelling need. Mojanar, naudigastir, the guests of need. And they come to us, they're compelled to come to us twice in our lives, at our birth and our death, because those are the times of the most compelling need. And we hope that they don't have to visit many times in between, because it's really on the cusp of life and death that they show up. So my sister does this work with people who are passing, and she describes it as holding somebody's tone. When we're born, we make a sound that's just unique to us. It's our tone. The tone, that piece of Ymir, the chaotic sound that we belong to, that belongs to us, and that makes us who we are. And so it is the process of remembering that tone and moving our sound on breath through our systems down into our past roots, and finding what other tones are down there and bringing them up here, and then allowing them freely to move out of our bodies and into the wide world. And this unique tone is what we were born with and what we will die with. This is the tone that rejoins us to the great Gununga gap and that sound that we all come from. When she was doing this holding tones quite a lot, when she was in New York at 9/11 and she really listened to her guides without question during that time. She was working at a Lutheran Brotherhood building, or Lutheran Social Services building, I think, close, like on First. And I had that intuition of Melanie needs to know something, but I don't know what it is. So I called her up and I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure you're wearing good shoes there in New York. You know, there's a lot of walking going on around New York. And she's like, okay, thanks. So then the next day, well, you know, Kari, she's goofy, but she sometimes has good insight, so she wore her hiking shoes to work that Monday. And then she had to march her whole office 98 blocks out of that zone. And so she was glad and I was glad, but it was really hard. And that whole night she was holding tones for people and seeing their faces. And the next day she'd go and she'd see all their faces on the posters, and she knew them. You know, that's work that I have resisted going into. That's pretty intense stuff, but it's that tone. When my boys were little, I would always tell them that they are unique. Of course, we're all unique. What does that mean? I said, well, it's a little bit like you're a puzzle piece, and 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 we all are our own unique puzzle piece. And we can't fit into anyone else's spot. And if you spend all your life trying to fit into I'm a corner, I've got edges like this, and then there's a little bit of water and half a duck. That's who I am, right? But really what you are is wiggly trees and sky. You won't fit into the big picture, ever. You have to know who you are, absolutely. Each little contour, each little curve, each shade of color is different. And so it's about figuring out what our piece looks like and being that authentic piece. That's how we fit in. That's how we get to see the whole picture, the big picture of what we are. So finding your tone, finding your piece, what your edges look like for real, moving out of this preconceived idea that was implanted by our outside culture of who we are and what we're supposed to do. Find out what you really should do, what you really skulle do, what your shield really is. Yeah? And that's how you pay in, and that's how you grow more excellent past. There's a verse in the Havamal, which is the second book of the Eddas, and it says, cattle die, kinsmen die, you too, you will also die. But the one thing that never dies is your reputation, your name, that piece of the past which you have built for yourself and for your family and your ancestors. That's the piece that never goes away. So we do a lot of downward looking or inward looking in Norse tradition. And when we have to do that piece, it can get very uncomfortable because we are challenged to change our viewpoint, to change how we view ourselves. And it's not something that happens just once in your life after a retreat. It's constant. It's constant. If you stop changing, it's probably because you're not alive anymore. And then you're changing in a whole new way. You have to constantly be changing. So I'm gonna sing a song that I wrote a number of years ago for winter solstice. And it's called Cycle. And it's about the lessons that we can learn from the trees that we are created from, the world tree that holds the universe together, the trees that we see outside our windows. As above, so below, branches reaching, roots they grow, held by earth and touched by wind, speaking truth to all who will listen. Sap is moving, rising slow, fire the buds, let them grow, ever changing, never moving. Let us be more like a tree. Winter's held us deep within, dark mother's womb, safely speak, and the sun's light comes again. Winter's wisdom, let us keep. Cycle moon, cycle sun, always ending, just begun, always moving, turn the wheel. All I have to do is feel. Cycle life, cycle me, the wise old crone I long to be, and that maiden keeps me free, and the mother sums up me. Cycle, transition, uncomfortable position. To be changing is a constant. To be present is the goal. To be growing is our purpose. To be present is the goal. As above, so below. Branches reaching, roots they grow. Held by earth, touched by wind. Speaking truth to all who will listen. Speaking truth to all who will listen. Thank you so much. So, my words of wisdom for the darkness of the solstice is embrace the void. Don't fill it up. Don't usher in the light too soon. Only in the real darkness can you see that little spark that's you for real. Only in the clear, clean emptiness of the void can you hear your voice, your unique voice. Breathe it in on a sound. It's amazing. That's the sound we make when we are so surprised and in full of joy. Let that be your solstice sound. Tusen tack. Winter's come. Winter's come. See the black of the trees. Time has gone. Time has gone. Leaving no one but me. in Norse tradition, this is like the only time you actually get to touch anybody when we're dancing. So you put your left hand up to receive and your right hand down to give, right? Yeah. And then you cross your thumbs, that little X. That little X of your thumbs is the Gifu rune. That means the gift, the gifting rune. And we come as close as we can. Wow. And this is a Lithuanian song for Saule, the sun goddess. In Norse tradition, one of the other quirks is that the goddess is a sun and the moon is a god. So we have all sorts of weirdness. Anyway, and it goes like this. Saulala. Motula. Ushtakek. Ushtakek. Yep, that means sun goddess mother, wheel across the sky so we can have enough. Yeah? We do it all together, and then it's just a little, we step sunwise because this is, and remember, inhale, Sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, ushta-kek, sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, ushta-kek, sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, ushta-kek, everyone, sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, ushta-kek. Now let's hear your voices. La-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, ushta-kek, sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, ushta-kek, sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, ush. Now remember to look at everybody. Sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, ushta-kek, 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 sa-la-la, I'm tricking everyone into hugging. Ushta-kek, sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek. Everyone get in here. Oh, it's a big ball of yarn. Ushta-kek, ushta-kek, sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek. I think we're good, yeah? Is everyone in? Sa-la-la, mo-tu-la, ushta-kek, Worcester cake, oh, sa-la-la, ma-tu-la, Worcester cake, sa-la-la, ma-tu-la, Worcester cake, sa-la-la, ma-tu-la, Worcester cake, Worcester cake. And yay! I love that so much.
Beautiful. Thank you.